The human mind is an extraordinary force, a wellspring of ideas, a compass guiding us toward our greatest aspirations. It can shape destinies, bring clarity to chaos, and ignite inspiration in the world around us. When nurtured and directed with intent, it becomes the architect of success, the source of peace, and the guiding star that turns dreams into reality. Yet that same mind, if left unchecked, can weave an entirely different tale, one of hesitation, self-doubt, and invisible barriers. It can become a fortress, trapping us within the walls of fear, drowning us in the shadows of past failures, and whispering limiting beliefs that shackle our potential. Without guidance, it can transform into a storm that distorts our vision, leaving us lost in uncertainty. Part 1. The Artist's Journey. Meet Elias, a young painter whose heart had always been captivated by the magic of colors. From a young age, he marveled at how a brushstroke could capture an emotion, how a single hue could tell a story. His mind was a universe of vibrant landscapes, soulful portraits, and breathtaking scenes that had never been seen before. Each time he held a brush, he felt as if he were conversing with the universe itself. But over time, another voice began to echo in his mind. At first, it was a mere whisper. Am I truly good enough? Will anyone ever understand my art? The whispers grew into echoes, then into a tidal wave that drowned his passion. He hesitated before every stroke, second-guessed every color choice, every composition. The more he fed these thoughts, the more painting became a burden rather than a joy. He began to compare himself to others, scrolling endlessly through exhibitions of established artists, feeling as though his work was inadequate. His mind, once his most powerful ally, had turned into his harshest critic. Eventually, Elias could no longer bear the weight of his own doubts. The brushes that once felt like an extension of his soul now sat untouched on his desk, gathering dust. What was once his source of inspiration had become a prison. He stopped painting altogether, convincing himself that perhaps he was never truly an artist to begin with. Part 2. A Meeting with Stoicism. One evening, Elias found himself wandering into a small gallery on a quiet street. The walls were lined with paintings, some complete, others left unfinished. A few pieces were brilliant, while others were clearly the work of an artist still finding their voice. But each one had something in common. They all carried the imprint of someone who had dared to create. An elderly artist, known for both his wisdom and boundless creativity, noticed Elias standing still before an unfinished painting. The old man watched him for a moment before speaking. "Do you know why your mind has become your enemy?" Elias, startled, turned to the old man. He had no answer, only the weight of his unspoken fears. The old man smiled knowingly. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Your fears and doubts do not come from the world around you. They are creations of your own mind." Elias turned his gaze back to the painting before him, an incomplete piece, yet brimming with courage and raw creativity. There was something striking about its imperfection, as if the artist had abandoned fear to simply express. The old man continued, "The only thing you truly control is your actions. You cannot control how others perceive your art, but you can control whether or not you continue to paint." Those words resonated deeply within Elias. He realized that he had allowed his focus to drift toward things beyond his control, the opinions of others, the fear of failure. But if he concentrated solely on what was within his power, his effort, his practice, his perseverance, fear would have no place to grow. Part 3. Breaking Free. That night, Elias returned home and stood before his empty canvas. His hands trembled as he picked up a brush, but instead of hesitating, he let the first stroke fall freely. Then another, and another. The painting didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to exist. Each day he sat down to paint, no longer fixating on the outcome. He explored new techniques, experimented with colors he once avoided, and even painted abstractly, something he had always dismissed as too chaotic. He allowed himself to make mistakes, embracing the learning that came with them. Whenever doubts crept back in, he reminded himself of Seneca's words, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And it was true. The fears that once held him captive were nothing more than illusions he had created. There were days when he struggled, when the old whispers returned. But instead of letting them paralyze him, he acknowledged them and moved forward. He stopped measuring his success by external validation and instead found joy in the process itself. Weeks turned into months. He started sharing his work again, not with the desperate hope for approval, but as an act of expression. Some people loved his art, others didn't, and for the first time, he realized it didn't matter. What mattered was that he painted, that he created, that he stayed true to himself. Part 4. The True Victory. Years later, Elias found himself once again in that same gallery. But this time, the paintings on the walls were his own, testimonies of struggle, growth, and inner triumph. Each piece told a story, not just of color and form, but of resilience, discipline, and a mind transformed. The elderly artist, now frail yet still filled with wisdom, stood beside him and smiled. "Do you understand now?" Elias nodded. He understood that true victory was not in being recognized by others, but in mastering one's own mind. Success was not measured by the applause of an audience, but by the ability to create despite doubt, to act despite fear, to persist despite uncertainty. For years he had feared imperfection, but now he embraced it, knowing that imperfection was simply a mark of growth. The mind is not meant to be a prison of fear. It is a space for dreams, for creation, for inspiration. Elias's journey is one that resonates deeply with many of us. We all experience moments of doubt, times when our own mind becomes our greatest adversary. We hesitate before taking action, fearing the judgment of others or the possibility of failure. But Stoicism teaches us that these fears are merely illusions, constructs of our thoughts that can be dismantled by shifting our focus. The greatest lesson Elias learned, and one that we too must embrace, is that we are only in control of our own actions. We cannot dictate how the world will react to us, nor can we predict the outcomes of our efforts with certainty. What we can do is show up, do the work, and commit to our craft, whatever it may be. True freedom comes from within. When we learn to master our thoughts, to silence the unnecessary noise, and to act with courage despite uncertainty, we reclaim the power that was always ours to begin with. The mind is indeed a remarkable machine, but only when we become its master rather than its prisoner. And so the question remains, what will you choose to control within your own mind? Elias's journey teaches us a powerful lesson. Our mind can either be our greatest ally or our toughest enemy. Fear, doubt, and hesitation are illusions, barriers we create ourselves. But you have the power to break free. So ask yourself, what dream have you put on hold because of self-doubt? What passion have you silenced out of fear? The time to act is now. Take that first step. Pick up the brush, write the first word, start the journey, because action, not fear, shapes our destiny. Subscribe for more inspiration on mastering your mind and embracing Stoicism. Comment below. What's one fear you're ready to let go of today?